So as you can see, there is a problem that happened just to the right of me. Now how open this is, we do not know yet. So I'm keeping a safe distance between me and the policeman. We don't know what could happen next. But I will have you note that there is public records available. Now whether or not you're savvy enough how to use them is a different question entirely. However, that should not be taken advantage of for only experts' use. No, we need a more layman's term, almost as an almanac for a poor man. What I'm referencing is, of course, just because an expert doesn't know how to do something should not mean you're forwarded to a different department, because that's a waste of your own time on their behalf. Now, whether or not that has anything to do with the issue behind me, we're gonna have to check a public record. I just needed to give a PSA and enjoy this vlog. There are some people who live for the red carpet. Oh, I live for the Ave. The Ave where it all goes down and you can say whatever you want, but will it make it that far in the internet? Well, probably not. And so, one thing in public, where I don't go out as much, what I don't see in my smug small town is these infinities that are promoted in, well, I guess would say blue cities, where the LGBT community is anti-Christianity. That trope we're gonna handle in just a minute. But the other one is fantastic to also level out the playing field with the infinity, is the immigration of the United States, is where we can have this immigration where you're gonna have like a whole bunch of these places having different immigrations. A college campus, for example, there are areas where white people cannot go. And I guess there's these clubs in college and you get these small houses, those are called fraternities. Moreover, these small like clubhouses where there's like a room or two where you can only go in there if like you're black, if you're inside of a black club. That's not true, because I've gone into a black club in a college. This amplitude that is hard to describe. If you are having 4 hours of sleep, you're gonna be tired. But then if the next day you get 4 hours of sleep, it's on top of the last 4 hours. And then the third day getting 4 hours again, you're going to be that much more sleepy, because it's on top of that previous 2 other 4-hour nights. So this is the amplitude and arrow of time. In LGBT community, being anti-Christianity, quite frankly, is not American, because this nation was founded with our constitutions being through God-given rights. And so that's an issue with me. The other thing is like having yourself be a different thing each day depending on how your mood is. The LGBT community having different identities for themselves is hidden variables, such as anything that they don't like, which annoys them, and makes them want to be aggressive. They say that it is a hate speech because it makes them hate whenever they hear it. So that, is an infinity down a rabbit hole. And this is very much having to do with wave functions because, there's always this amplitude. It's this where people get lost when you're talking about like a wave. Its amplitude is so important because you're having to be observant of all this quantum stuff without being observing of it. There's no momentum, or position is not defined until that observing occurs. And so if you're looking to get plugged into the matrix and have these like utopia of just having this goggles put on your eyes and that being the key, unfortunately you're going to get short-circuited, and that'll only last so long. In Canada, there's a committee that they've got this death machine signed up where you will get like 3 months in a vacation, but at the end of 3 months you sign up to succumb to your pulling the plug. This machine pulls the plug for you. I'm not making this up, and this is a fad where all this money is getting made from simply just people offing themselves in Canada from this machine that they've made of a 3D printer. Something in a dystopia novel? Quite frankly, no. This is a fad occurring. And so if you put a particle in a box or a person, the wave function of all the things that are happening come to a smaller amplitude because there's more of a deterministic value. The ultimate case of this would be the fate of an entire livelihood. Ostensibly, this is where, if you're trying to understand everything about an entire population and use them as your dismay, this would be what a goal of a communism comes in the form of, whether it be LGBT or BLM, for the reasons of denouncing a group inferior, would ostensibly be using that as an entire goal for likelihood of time. So this is bad because in time, the start and the end of time, you would be propping up as defining the group ahead of time, and in defying what the other one would be doing of is, quite frankly, what is saying that like you don't have any time for anything but your own agenda. So that is why the purpose of God's important, because we're on his watch. And so that's back to the box again. If you're in the box and you're not able to think outside of the box and be outside of the box, then it's going to be more so the amplitude being closed. And so what's also important is that in the largest scales that you've got the beginning of time, it's closed out where you cannot see the beginning of time because of the Big Bang was so bright that we can't scale of that much into the past. So that's untold, and the future being untold because we don't know how the universe is going to end because it hasn't ended yet. And so there's no reason to say that a group of people can put you in a box, because the box of the arrow of time of our existence currently is wide open. And so in science saying that they know a particular way of how to be deterministic for the best likelihood it cannot be in your interest unless you have full control over it. And so if you were trying to understand everything about like someone, you would first need to know the rods and cones of their eyes, and then how large they are, all their scaling, and then be able to see the bouncing of lights all about those rods and cones, and that would be how to put a box around someone. But since that's not of an occurrence, you don't have to be inside of a box. Have these exuberant play-by-play moments of each frame where you can see if it is actual footage of the video game or if it's a CGI. Now the difference of the two is of course the inference of, well, is it pre-programmed or is it the actual game engine? And in order to know the difference of these two, lays out a feature of which where you can make reality look an in-game play, as though where Fauci would have his fingerprints on all of these gene bioweapons, even if he was trying to stop them. Undeniably the fact where in-game you can have him with these hands that are almost like phantom limbs, and people have phantom limbs when they get amputated. The sensation that the arm is still there and they can move around with it, the energy is conserved, of course, one of the principles. But this uncertainty principle is something where it's a launch pad for things like what just described, these characters exuberating these maneuvers that would seem as though unrealistic, but then in due time with the game engine you can see the actual footage being utilized in attributes that are harder to perceive unless they're consistent, like 5G panels being on water towers. You can't really see them, but when those suckers are firing at full blast, you know, you've got water and electricity right next to each other, separated by metal, a conductor of the two.